I call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We have 5 here. I think we got 1 that'll be here in a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I've called the meeting to order, established a quorum. So first item is public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be addressed at this time. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Okay, so I'm opening public comment. No one, going to close it. Consent agenda. We have minutes for, I think, August and October,
Correct.
but not September. So we're going to, someone, if they make a motion, maybe remove September. And then we've got a replat with no variances on the consent agenda. I'm going to open this up for public comment.
There's only public comment if you're going to pull the plat. Otherwise,
Okay.
there's not.
All right. I'm going to close public comment and take a motion.
Move to approve consent agenda excluding the minutes from September. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda excluding the September minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Regular agenda, subdivision plats. Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. Item 1 is FP 2418, Trinity Park, Section 2, a request to final plat. Trinity Park, Section 2 being 19.997 acres located at 518 and 528 Country Club Road, and a variance request for paving width, curb and gutter on Country Club Road. This received a 30-day extension at the October meeting at the request of the applicant. Right?
Good morning, Ray Lineberry, planner. So this is a plat. They are platting 19.997 acres. It is one whole lot. It is District 1, Tommy Hebert, the Country Club neighborhood. The zoning is neighborhood commercial, and the vision plan is neighborhood. They did request a variance for the paving width and the curb and gutter along Country Club. This is the plat. And then this is an overhead picture, and then I have a zoomed-in picture. So staff is recommending a partial variance, that they at least extend the paving width to match what is currently at the edge of their property. That's what this is right here. It's about 3 feet. So I put denial, but it is a partial variance to only allow the extension of 3 feet for the paving width, but to allow the curb and gutter, and approval on the plat with 6 conditions: the tax cert, drainage study, that they submit plans for the 3 feet on Country Club Road. I did put install curb and gutter in case the variance is denied, and then sidewalks have been required along Country Club and along the 277 frontage.
Okay.
They did request a sidewalk waiver that was denied.
And they have requested an appeal of that sidewalk waiver here today.
Okay. What are the, we're talking about a pavement width variance.
Yes.
What does the ordinance say about the pavement width?
It is a local road, so the minimum standard is 26 feet,
And how wide is the road today?
21 feet.
21 feet? Is that what you said?
Yes.
So granting a 3-foot variance would give 24 feet on the road? Okay. And then there's sidewalks required on Country Club Road and the frontage road?
Yes.
And they've requested
an appeal
an appeal of the variance,
of the waiver.
or of the waiver. Okay. All right.
For both sides or just
For both sides.
anyone else have questions for the staff? All right. Ray, thank you. I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Russell Gully is signed up.
Great.
Good morning, Russell Gully with SKG Engineering. We would ask for your approval of this, along with the variances, not only for the street width, but also, I guess now the sidewalk waiver. This area, the church has functioned here for many, many years, and then they brought on this school kind of extra to this here, and so they're having to plat in order to be able to kind of do an addition for the school side of this property. So really the main overall and the primary function of this property for the church is not really changing. This is just kind of an accessory building for the school that's coming in that is triggering the plat, and in this case now triggering the street widening and the sidewalks. As you can tell, there's a lot of buildings on this property that have been there, and the additions have been done through the years, but because of because of the way the ordinance has changed a while back, when you have the city set a limit on 25% or a 5,000 square foot building addition, then you got to come back and plat. So that's kind of what's triggering us to be here today is that they're looking to build something a little bit over 5,000 square feet, and that's triggering us being here. So there, other than the sidewalks within the little residential neighborhood to the west, there's no sidewalks of anything to connect to beyond that, to especially along the frontage road to the east. TxDOT, as we've seen, they've been adding sidewalks in a lots of around the TxDOT rights of way, but they haven't done anywhere close to this location. So really, to make the church / the school in this case be responsible for adding a sidewalk along the frontage road is and due to the size of this project, is really kind of one of those, is like, sidewalks are not cheap to construct, and so that really kind of starts to tilt the scale of does this project still viable when they're having to build, that since they have two frontages of long lengths, that really starts to take its toll on and add cost to this building they're looking to do. We have Mickey Burkett here today. He's going to come up after me, and he'll maybe speak a little bit more about the building program and what the school is doing there. So we would like, and I think staff had even talked about some kind of deferral along the frontage road, and I'm guessing that's still kind of on the table for this, or that's part of that's what's, I guess, valid if we don't get this variance.
That was correct. That was what was in the letter, was a deferral for the frontage road. I think we would like to amend that to a partial waiver to waive that on the access frontage road. The challenge for us is when you defer it just to a time period, that's hard to track, and it just doesn't make sense. If we're not going to require it now, there may be another project in the future that would require it, so let's just waive the frontage road. So it'd be a partial waiver for the frontage road, and so really we're only talking about the Country Club Road.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And so, now that helps, that certainly helps what we're talking about. So if we don't get the full waiver of that, maybe a negotiation, if you will, for lack of a better term, and I don't want to be spending the churches or the schools' money, would be maybe at a minimum or at most a sidewalk that from the church that ties back to the west to that sidewalk there that's at the Trinity Park subdivision back to the west, instead of taking yes, or maybe on the opposite side of the street, I think. So maybe there we take a sidewalk from there up to the church building, and for this there's a sidewalk there, so maybe something of that nature. So we would ask for that consideration, and then for the street widening, this planning commission has approved some variances in recent meetings for when we were looking at about a 21-foot width of pavement. So we would ask for your consideration and approval of the variance on the street widening as well. So thank you for your
Okay.
time. Happy to answer any questions.
I just want to be clear on what the applicant is requesting. They want a variance, they want to keep the road like it, they don't want to do anything that the subdivision ordinances have triggered. Is that, so no road widening, no sidewalks on either of the frontage road or the country club road, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Russell, if they don't widen the road, how would the sidewalk then come in? Would it be the sidewalk and then kind of a dead space and then the road? If they didn't widen the road is what that would look like, so that could be a maintenance issue going forward?
It could be, but the typical design of sidewalks has a 3-foot gap between back of curb already. So there kind of is that gap, that maintenance space. And the church, I believe, and the school does a great job of maintaining all the way to the edge of pavements all the way around that. So it would just be another edge a little strip to maintain. So I think the school or church, I don't know what their arrangement would certainly continue to maintain it as they have been through the years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions for Russell? No? Thank you, Russell. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Mickey Burkett. I'm associated with the school. I'm on the board of directors, vice president for the school board for San Angelo Christian Academy, and also a member of the church there. So the school, 18 months ago, started trying to turn this pavilion. It's an open-air pavilion. We started out trying to just enclose it as a gymnasium, trying to minimize cost as much as possible. The school doesn't really make money. It's pretty much just get by. They don't bring a lot of income. So ultimately, I'm here trying to minimize costs as much as possible. I am working with a contractor to try and get this accomplished. We met with the city back in July of 2023, trying to see what we could do about enclosing this. The square footage of the building requires us to add a sprinkler system, those sorts of things that no one ever mentioned. The sidewalks were going to be something we're going to need to add, so it's just an additional cost that came up, I guess, kind of, in my opinion, kind of at the ninth hour. Wasn't aware of that. I ultimately we don't have the money. We're going to be taking a loan out for this. We started out hoping we could get something done for $800,000 or $900,000, and we're sitting at about 2.2 now, and so we're going to be 2.2 million trying to get this completed and done. It's grown a lot more than we anticipated, so ultimately trying to minimize the cost. You can understand that. The school, it's really about the kids. We're trying to make sure that we're providing a good place for kids to hang out, kids to be in today's society. There's not a lot of good things that kids can be, but the church, this school has about 130 students now. Maximum enrollment's about 160. There's not a lot of future expansion planned for the facility or the school. It's kind of tapped out. I don't have any kids there. I'm on the school board. My kids are 25 and 29. My wife is the math teacher there, so they have a good math program. That's about all I can guarantee, but it's a good place for the kids to be. It's a good Christian environment. We're just trying to minimize the cost, and that's really what I'm here today is still, we're going to be taking out a loan. The school doesn't have the money to pour out to pay for all of this, so this will be a bank loan finance and paid for. We're going to have help from the church to pay for it, so just trying to minimize the cost. If I was Bill Gates, I would have no problem writing a check to pay for the whole thing and add the sidewalks, but that's just kind of where I'm at, is just asking for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. All right, anyone else wish to speak on this case?
There's nobody else signed up.
All right, so I'm going to close public comment.
Back to,
So I think it's important to kind of take these issues one at a time. So the first issue, I think, that is probably most critical is the road width. And I've traveled on that road quite a bit in my years. And 3 feet doesn't seem like a lot, but it makes a big difference. That property, the enclosure that they're gonna, that old outdoor gym that's covered that they're going to enclose. There's been a lot of practices, like soccer practices and basketball, kids playing on those courts and in that area forever. So I guess I'm mindful of the children being there, which is, I think, what we want. I'm reluctant to waive sidewalks on a school, on a property that has school grounds. And I understand the challenges with the church of cost of adding sidewalks, and I don't know that we need sidewalks all the way around the property, but to me, it seems like having some sidewalk would be appropriate given the students that are coming in and out of the building, and just having a way to get off of the property into the neighborhood without walking on the street would seem like a safety issue. Anyone else have thoughts they want to share?
One of the considerations is what Russell drew up, maybe a
Yeah.
partial sidewalk to that midpoint of the property and then be on their side to put in the rest of it. But I did like that opportunity to at least put in a partial.
Do you mind going back to the aerial that shows, that's perfect. And I believe there's a driveway, there's a curb cut already, isn't there, Aaron? Yeah, right there. So you're saying from the curb cut to the west along Country Club Road? Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I had kind of the same thought when we were going through looking at that. I don't know if I can rationalize not widening the street. It's already widened all the way up to that point. And it is, there's pretty low visibility coming off that frontage road, and, it goes all the way up to the edge of the property.
All right. Anyone else want to share thoughts or make a motion? We want to go back to the, anyone want to make a motion?
I'd move to approve the final plat, subject to staff recommendations, with the exception of waiving sidewalk along 277. As Aaron mentioned, I think that's already been negotiated with the city, but just to be clear on that. And then allowing a partial sidewalk, as we discussed, from the curb cut back towards the neighborhood.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Were you going to say anything about the road?
I was just going along with this, what the city recommended.
The city recommended 3-foot paving,
Yeah, so
which would
partial-
match the width of the road west of the property.
This would be a partial variance, right?
It is an estimate of 3 feet. We just ask that they match that.
Okay? We have a motion on the floor. Anyone wish to second it?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, 6-0.
5. Candy wasn't present for the whole presentation, so we're
Okay.
doing 5.
No problem. 5-0. Item 2, PP 2403 and FP 2422, Bank and Trust subdivision and preliminary plat subdividing 7.192 acres of vacant land into 4 lots for commercial development along US 87, and a final plat outlining 1 2.5-acre lot from the southern area of the preliminary plat along Humble Road.
Thank you. Austin Reed Planner. This is a pair of plats for the Bank and Trust subdivision coming out of District Number 2, Tom Thompson's district. We are in the Riverside neighborhood. The zoning for this area is general commercial, CG, and the vision plan is commercial as well. Here's a look at that preliminary plat. You can see all 4 lots ranging in size from 1 acre to 2.5 acres. This entire area was recently rezoned to general commercial, so we can assume that it will be developed that way in the future. Here's a look at that final plat. As you can see, it's just for that southernmost lot there off of Humble Road. They've included some utility easements, and they are dedicating some additional right-of-way width off of Humble Road as well. So here's a look at Humble Road there, right south of that final plat. Humble Road is actually categorized as a minor arterial, meaning it has a required paving width of about 48 feet and right-of-way width of 68 feet, of course, with curb and gutter. Right now, that sits at 22 feet and 46 feet respectively with no curb and gutter. The applicant is requesting a partial variance to pave their incremental half of the paving, which comes out to about 13 feet, and a partial variance to dedicate their incremental half of right-of-way, which is about 17 feet and already indicated on the plat. Staff thinks these variances make sense as Humble Road doesn't really function as a minor arterial. So we are recommending approval of the preliminary plat with 1 note, approval of the final plat with 8 conditions, and approval of partial variance for both the paving and right-of-way width. I'd like to apologize. Some of these conditions didn't make it into the staff report, but these are the conditions for your final plat. 1, that they provide a tax certificate. 2, that they submit a revised plan showing the full right-of-way or receive approval of that partial variance. That they submit plans for the widening of Humble Road or receive approval of the variance. Submit plans for the construction of curb and gutter along Humble Road. Submit plans for the sidewalk along both frontages or receive a waiver, and a waiver has been submitted. A drainage study and plans for the extension of the sewer and water. And then your 1 note for the preliminary plat is that they provide us with a copy for signatures and record keeping. So if you have any questions?
Yes. Items 2 and 3 on the notes. Dedicate 68 feet or receive approval of a variance. You said that they had made a request for a variance?
A request for a partial variance for the incremental halves of both.
So,
What's in the conditions are those, the minimum measurements that we require by our ordinance.
Okay.
They are proposing to go halfway to each of those measurements.
Could you show on the plat again what that actual distance is?
yeah, what is it, now I understand, what is it currently?
So, it's currently paved 22 feet wide, whereas they're supposed to get to 48 feet minimum.
Okay,
And the right-of-way is currently at 46, whereas 68 feet is the minimum.
okay. And the applicant is, or the staff is in support of a variance where they would contribute their half of that right-of-way
Correct,
and the road width?
correct.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have questions for the staff? Thank you, Austin.
Thanks.
I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Russell Gully.
Good morning, Russell.
Good morning. Russell Gully, SKG. So we'd ask for your approval of this. So maybe there's some confusion on our end even a little bit. So the current right-of-way width, as we see it, is 46 feet. To get to the 80 feet, that would leave 34 feet of right-of-way to be dedicated. And
80 feet.
80 feet, right, sorry.
80.
80.
There's a difference.
Yeah, I was a little confused about
68 is what
The presentation says.
the presentation says.
Right, and there's these required and then there's the minimums, and that's kind of maybe where I'm confused a little bit too. If, say, we were going in and dedicating a new subdivision that needed an arterial street, we'd be doing 80 feet.
Yes, sir.
This one's an existing condition, so per the ordinance, 68 feet may be what would be acceptable for,
That is correct. Since this is an existing road, we couldn't require the 80 feet like it's a brand-new road. We require the minimum width. In this case, for a minor arterial is 68 feet for right-of-way.
but because this is an existing and it's adjacent to our property, we're only obligated to dedicate our incremental half to get to either 68 feet or 80 feet,
Yeah,
whichever way
so
you're looking at it.
the current right-of-way is 46 feet. It needs to be 68, so that'd be 22 feet, so 11 would be
What we would be obligated to
the
dedicate.
obligation of this
That is
applicant.
correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct, because the properties to the south of Humble Road would then, when they plat, they would dedicate their incremental half.
And we're doing that.
Okay.
So we don't, from my understanding, since we're doing that, we don't need a variance for the right-of-way width.
Correct.
Okay.
Gotcha. And that's what I was kind of confused on. I didn't understand why there was a variance.
Okay, we understand, yes.
Okay.
So we don't believe there's a variance request needed because we are dedicating the appropriate right-of-way width.
Does the same apply for the road width?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the road width is currently approximately 22 feet, and the road width for existing needs to be 48 feet?
Correct. That's what I wrote.
So-
That is correct.
So then our half would be 13 feet,
13. Yep.
and we're happy to do that. So
Okay.
we do not believe we need to ask for variances for either of those?
Correct. I would concur with the applicant, with Mr. Gully, that both of those would not require variance requests.
Okay.
And then we also had submitted the sidewalk, or we're planning to, I guess we haven't yet, or
I
we
think y'all
will
did
make.
submit a waiver. The
Have
city
you?
engineer and I have not acted on that waiver yet. We certainly support a deferral from requiring it on the plat to the site plan.
Okay.
Since this is a commercial property, I think that makes more sense. That gives us a little time to discuss that waiver and then go from there.
Russell, you guys are asking for variance?
Well, since it's a waiver request, I don't believe there's anything that we need to do for the plat.
Correct.
So long as planning commission doesn't make it a specific requirement, and it can just be worked out with city engineer and,
So we're going to defer it to the site plan in our approvals here, and
We
You can
city staff can defer that automatically through a deferral with it. While it still sits there as a condition, we then put a deferral document with that condition that satisfies the condition.
is that okay with you?
So, and city and planning commission cannot act on the sidewalk until city engineer and city planning director have made a determination on the waiver. So we're not quite ready to hear that
We
yet.
don't say anything about the sidewalk essentially in our
We need to defer it.
defer it. Okay,
It needs to be deferred in this approval.
yes.
okay.
Thank you very much, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else wish to speak on this case?
No one else has signed up.
All right, I'm going to close public comment and take thoughts or emotion, please. Can you go back to the recommendation slide, please? Perfect. So items 2 and 3 don't apply, is that correct?
That is correct.
Or
believe
do
that's
we
correct.
just strike receive approval of a variance?
I believe item 2 and 3 That's their intent, based on the image of dedicating the right-of-way and what they've said about adding the street widening. So there is no variance request. It's just their incremental half of street widening for Humble Road.
Does the plat that's been submitted have 68 feet of right-of-way and 48 feet of paving, the incremental halves, or does that need to be adjusted?
The plat does show the right-of-way.
Okay,
Yeah. We won't see the street until the actual street plans are turned in, but that's something our city engineer team will evaluate.
so we can strike both of those comments from the approval or not?
Or do we just need
I-
to say that we're
I think you need-
approving that they give their half?
Yeah, I don't think you need this part of that one, and you don't need a revised plat. I think it already
And
is
no variance.
representative of what it's showing.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, since the plat is on here, I would like to go back and look and see. It does say right away. Okay, so it does say that there is that much as public right away.
And that comes out to 17 feet.
So they do need a revised plat.
Is Russell in agreement to that?
I do believe, and we may ask Mr. Gully to come back up, but the intent is to dedicate their incremental half and to pave their
I'm going to
incremental
open
half.
public comment for Mr. Gully to speak.
Oh, I wrote over it. There's 17 feet labeled between the arrow that we're showing to dedicate.
Yeah.
It's within that 5490 square feet hereby dedicated as public right-of-way. So we are on the plat showing 17 feet, which is actually.
11 is what was required.
Right, but we were being the good stewards and going to the full 80 feet,
Okay.
just because that's kind of what we were planning on doing. We can back it down to 11, but we
You
were
wanna
going to leave
revise
it at, or, right, we can revise it. I don't know if there's
Okay.
a need for 68 or 80, but we were planning to do the 80 feet. Or half to get to 80 feet, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I think the city envisions that at the 68 feet, not the 80, I think. And that's for future discussion, but I think we would start with the 11 feet, and then if we needed to go larger in the future, we would go larger in the future.
We'll revise it down to 11 feet there instead of
Perfect.
17. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Okay, so just to clarify for this approval, we're going to strike receive approval of a variance on items 2 and 3 and add a deferral of the sidewalk to the site plan. Anyone wish to make a motion on this one?
So moved.
Okay,
I don't want to repeat that. but
we have a
I
motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Striking, receive approval of a variance on items 2 and 3, adding the deferral of the sidewalk requirement to site plan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Item 3, crosswinds, Section 1A and 1B, a request for final plat. 1A, crosswinds being 7.272. Yes, sir.
I apologize. And Mr. Self, did we also take action on the preliminary plat for that? Was that part of your motion?
We can make a
I
motion.
know we concentrated on the final plat a lot. I just want to make sure we don't miss the preliminary plat as well.
So we're going back to PP 2403, and you're asking for a motion to approve the
Yes, sir.
preliminary plat.
That is correct.
Does anyone wish to make that motion?
So moved as well.
All right, we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the preliminary plat 2403. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0 on that.
Monday morning, sir.
Thank you. All right, now we're on to crosswinds. Section 1A and 1B, request to final plat 1A being 7.272 acres, and 1B being 5.028 acres, located in the G. Schubitz Survey and the Mary Lou Addition, west part of Lot 2.
Thank you, Chairman. This is two final plats that we're going to take action on together. You have seen a zoning for these about a month and a half ago maybe, that changed this area to a planned development. About 2 years ago, you did act on these plats, but the plats did not get filed at the time. The housing market has shifted for the developers, and so they are shifting with the housing market and bringing forward a couple of kind of revised plats, but since they weren't filed, these are still final plats. As requested, we were trying to do some bigger maps, so you see a much more zoomed out area. Just point out a couple of highlight things. That's the St. John's campus. Up here is the Pauline neighborhood. The Quicksands golf course is there. And of course, you see Houston Hart coming across there. And this is a fairly large vacant area just off of there and off of Smith Boulevard that is ready for what we would consider some infill development for housing. And this side of town certainly does need housing to help support Goodfellow and the Pauline neighborhood and the schools in those areas. So this does have a planned development with an underlying RS3 zoning, but also allows single-family and two-family dwellings, so single-family houses, duplexes, and the like. It is an extension of Ann Drive from the 2000 block, which is over on Montague or Montague, depending on what part of the country you're from, that goes over to Smith Boulevard. This is in SMD number 4, Miss Gonzalez, and in the Pauline neighborhood. So here is 1A. You can see right here is the extension of Ann Drive that's going to come back to the west. They're going to have a small spur for future development going up there, and they're going to come here and meet the subdivision ordinance with a temporary turnaround as they start building this out, and then they will continue on with the next plat. You can see the lots that are created in there. They are roughly 75 to 77 foot wide, so they're larger lots. They're also a little deeper. Currently, their intent is to do some two-family, but they may mix in some single-family as needed, and just depends on what the market drives them at the time. And so this is one way that city staff is trying to work with them to continue to be flexible in our zoning ordinance and our subdivision ordinance to allow development to continue with the movement of the market. So here's 1B. So that temporary turnaround would be somewhere right in that area. You can see it comes over here to Montague, and then there's another spur there that goes to the north for future development. Again, lots here. This lot here, number 1, is slightly wider than some of the other lots to accommodate the double frontage. And in our PD, we did allow a little bit less of a double frontage there, not the full 25 feet. I want to say it was a 10-foot, plus they also have a 10-foot utility easement through there as well. And so they're really the front of that house, if there was any frontage there, would be at 20 feet off the back of curb, which is sufficient for folks that are turning here, whether they're turning to the right or to the left. With that, staff does recommend approval with our standard comments of provide tax certificate, extend sewer and water mains, install necessary utility service connections, submit a drainage study and make any required improvements, construct and drive to city standards. There is a note on the plat for dedication of Tract A. That is on 1A. The city is not open to accept that dedication at this time. And then the last comment is add fire hydrants where necessary. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Where's the dedication?
The dedication back here this is Tract A right here. And so it would be, and Mr. Gully may be able to speak specifically, but this, I believe that entire Tract A, there's a note right down here to dedicate that to the city. And at this time, the city is not able to dedicate. I believe that's intended to be their stormwater detention or stormwater facility if necessary. But at this time, the city's not able to accept that dedication.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Anyone have questions for Aaron? All right, let's go to public comment.
Russell Gully.
Mr. Gully.
Good morning, Russell Gully with SKG. Thanks staff and Planning Commission for hearing this one. This has kind of been that unending project of trying to match the market and make something work. So we believe we've hopefully done it with this one. So would be happy to answer any questions and would ask for your approval as presented.
Anyone have questions for Russell? Thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak on this case?
No one else has signed up.
Okay, so we're going to close public comment and take a motion.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask who seconded that? I didn't see.
Uh,
Okay, thank you.
One of these two gentlemen over here. Luke says he won. Rezonings and comprehensive plan amendments. The city council has final authority for approval of rezonings and amendments to the comprehensive plan. Z 2415 Lasker addition, block 25, a request for a zone change from CGCH to low-rise multifamily RM1, including 6 properties located around West 18th, West 19th, and MLK.
Thank you. Austin Reed Planner. This item comes to you out of the Reagan neighborhood. We are in District Number 4, Lucy Gonzalez's district. The vision plan for these lots is commercial. The total area comes out to about 0.81 acres, and we have a request to rezone from CGCH to RM1. Most of these lots are occupied by very old structures. Most of them are residential and ready to come down. We think it's the applicant's intentions to demolish all these structures and redevelop it with some new multifamily residences. We did mail out 28 notices. We received 6 in support from the applicant's properties, and we received 1 that was opposed. They didn't list anything on their opposition.
I'm sorry, was there a reason for opposition?
No, they listed no reason.
Okay.
So here we have a look at the zoning on the left-hand side, and then our vision plan on the right. You can see this entire left-hand side of the block is CGCH. As I mentioned, it's never really functioned as commercial. And then on the right-hand side, we have that vision plan, and that red is commercial, and the multifamily will fit comfortably into that. So we think this is compatible with the surrounding area. The proximity to the major thoroughfares and the CGCH zoning makes RM1 zoning appropriate. It would provide a good transition between the residential and the commercial. We think there's a community need for diversity in housing and infill projects, and approval of this zoning would help to accomplish both of those things, and we don't think that there will be any adverse effects on the natural environment. With that, we are recommending approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Anyone have questions for Austin? Thank you, Austin.
Thanks.
I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Okay, we have 3 that have signed up. Dedra
Wonderful.
Butler?
Good morning. I am Dedra Butler, and I am probably pleased. I own 209 and owned 1821, 1817, and 1813 up until the end of May this year. I know the family that sold the property to the left of mine, and I was always concerned that I didn't realize that it was already zoned heavy commercial.
Yes.
Because my family moved in when I was 10 years old, and those houses had always been there.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't have any real opposition. I'm just glad that it is not going to be commercial.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And then Gloria Vega, did you still want to speak? No? Okay. Nope. And then Evelyn Smith, did you still want to speak?
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi.
Evelyn Smith, SMD 5, actually. But I'm here to represent in SMD 4, the church that's located on the corner of Martin Luther King and 19th Street. And since, well, my basic question is, I see you have the red area that's zoned as commercial, but the part that's next to it in the blue, is all that commercial? And you're just concerned about the ones in red on here? Or is all that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the staff can help explain this, but I think one is the current zoning. The image on the right is the current zoning, and the image on the left is the vision plan. Is that correct?
It swaps.
Or is it the other way?
yes. So the left is the current zoning, and then the right is the vision plan.
Okay.
And what do you mean by the vision plan?
So the vision plan is just kind of how the city envisions an area to function over time.
So there's a comprehensive plan that was adopted, it's been 20 years or more, that sets out long-range goals and objectives for development within the community. And so in most circumstances, the vision plan and the current zoning align. But where there are transitional areas, meaning commercial and residential are close to each other, we've seen historically in our cases that there's maybe a tract or two that are zoned one way that the vision plan swaps to a different direction because of these kind of large general swaths that the zoning is making from the comprehensive plan. So what I've seen on MLK is, I think all of it, from about Houston Hart to 29th Street, with the exception of only a couple of tracks, is probably commercial. And that's obviously the case here. The vision plan is to have commercial concentrated along Martin Luther King on both sides of the street. Personally, I think multifamily, this lower density multifamily that's proposed for this site is a great fit for this location and appropriate, being up against single-family residential to the east.
Okay, on your vision part,
Yes, ma'am.
the property that's next to the ones that you're concerned about right now, that is residential or is it commercial?
It's residential.
Residential, but you're saying in the future, there are some plans for that part of the property.
So if you look at 19th Street, that's where the big change is occurring between the current and the vision plan. It looks like. So 19th Street in the vision plan shows to be commercial as it's going east of MLK, and today it is all single-family residential.
So you're only concerned about that block of property
Yes,
for your
ma'am.
vision at this time, but not
Just,
the other?
just the 6 lots that are outlined in black, which is a little bit less than an acre, 0.8 acres is all that we're concerned about today. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, anyone else wish to speak on this case?
Nobody else has signed up.
Okay. Do you mind rolling forward? I'm going to close public comment. Do you mind rolling forward to the recommendations, please? All right. Anyone wish to make a motion on this one?
Move to, okay, go ahead. Move to approve as presented.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0 in support. Conditional uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval of conditional uses. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. CU 2428, 818 South Abe. A request for conditional use for a short-term rental located at 818 South Abe.
This is in District 5, Karen Hesse Smith in the Santa Rita neighborhood. It is RS2. They had a safety inspection and it was passed. If we look, you can see the yellow is the subject property. We have current conditional use without, thank you. Ray's going to help me. Remember, this is my first time presenting at Planning Commission. Hello, thanks. So excited to be here.
Good morning.
It's current conditional uses with a CO, with a change of occupancy.
Okay,
Thank you. And we have 10. And we have 10 that have either been denied or expired. So you can see the concentration is not close to where the subject property is. One of the things that I was worried about whenever I started researching this case was the parking and the entrance. So when I went to take pictures, let me see, is that picture on here? No, it's not. So when I went to take pictures, they do have 2 entrances to the driveway with a circular drive as well as a very long driveway along the side of the house that goes into the back. So they do have the adequate and required parking. You'll see that we mailed 16 notifications. We received 0 in favor and 1 in opposition, and it didn't list why they were opposed.
okay.
So we are recommending the approval of this conditional use. Obviously, they have to follow the conditions outlined in Section 406 and 804 of the zoning ordinance. And there was a tree, a small tree. We decided that, what was it?
A Palo Verde?
A Palo Verde, very beautiful. However, it is too tall and it could potentially block the sight lines. And so we are saying that they need to cut that down below 2 feet.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone have questions for the staff on this one? All right, thank you. Can I open it up for public comment?
We have 2 signed up. I have, is it Beverly Grenda?
My name is Beverly Grenda, and I live at 403 West Avenue D. And I would be down the alley on Cohenheim,
Okay,
and that property is on Abe Street.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. My concern is what is short time? What is a short-term rental?
A short-term rental is a property that is residential in nature that has a lease of less than 30 days.
And what type of kind of occupant would that be?
There are a number of different types of occupants that we've seen in this market. We've had traveling nurses that are working at Shannon Hospital that might come into one of these units and spend a couple of weeks. We've had a lot of families that are visiting relatives in San Angelo that come in and rent one of these houses in lieu of a hotel room to have a little bit more space and privacy.
Is that
And
kind of like a B&B?
it is, yes, ma'am. A lot of these properties are advertised on Airbnb.
Is this one of those properties?
I don't know if it is or not. It's not a requirement that they advertise on Airbnb, but I think an overwhelming majority in our market do. There's also, if you go back and look at the ordinance, we've put a lot of restrictions in place on operating short-term rentals in San Angelo. So the owner of this property is required to submit a local operator contact information. So if you have an issue with the property, you would have theoretically a direct line to someone that's responsible for the property that could help address an issue or a concern that you would have.
And the owner of the property will be living in the big house?
No, the owner will not reside on this property. If the owner resided on site, that would be a bed and breakfast, I believe. Is that correct?
During the rental, they cannot, but they can while it's not being rented.
So has she discussed what her plans are for the large house and then the rental property behind?
I'm going to defer to the staff on
I'm
that.
kind of mystified.
So, I believe the applicant is here.
Oh.
Nope, maybe not. When she discussed this, when she applied, they were told that they could not separate and rent those properties out separately, that it would be all as one because of the type of zoning it is. So if they rent it out, it will be all as one.
And I don't know if this comes under your jurisdiction, but there's a fence across the back of that property.
Okay.
Is there a way to ensure that fence stays up and it's maintained?
I would think that's a requirement.
Yes, it is. Our code enforcement officers would deal with that if there was a downed fence or a complaint on a fence that's not in proper repair.
My concern about the fence is if the fence is taken down and someone, wants to take a shortcut, they'd be coming down the alley.
Yes, ma'am.
And
You don't want that traffic.
don't want that, don't want the traffic.
I understand.
Because once it gets started, there's no stopping it.
It looks like the access, just from what I've seen and what we've seen on these pictures, is coming from Abe Street. I don't think that there's vehicular access from the alleyway presently or plans to add it
Well, if
in
they
the
take
future.
If they take the fence down and put a gate in, there would be.
Right.
I would say that we don't know that that's their intent, but you could put that as a condition that they must maintain a privacy fence along the alleyway.
Okay.
Well,
It is.
Ms. Grenda, do you have any other questions of us?
That's all I have, and I'm not comfortable with this.
Okay.
Our neighborhood is an older neighborhood,
Yes, ma'am.
and it's kind of in transition,
Yes, ma'am.
and I don't know whether this is going to be a good addition to the neighborhood or not.
I understand your concern, and the short-term rental use of a property has been a highly debated issue within the Planning Commission and the City Council for the last couple of years. I think we've done about the best that we could in terms of arriving at a common ground between ban them outright, which we don't believe that we have the authority to do, and not placing any restrictions on them at all,
Well, you
which
have
would
no-
not be good for our community as well.
The owner really has no control over what goes on.
Right.
They have no idea what's going to be happening on the property.
Well, these properties are going to have local operators, so I would encourage you to obtain the contact information for the local operator for this unit. And if you have any issues, if a part of the fence comes down or there's a loud noise, music or something, that you have a direct line to the operator. And if there's repeated problems and violations of the rules that we've set, the Planning Commission has the authority to revoke that conditional use. But if we have a designated local operator in an area that doesn't have another short-term rental close by, which this one doesn't, we feel inclined to approve it unless there's extenuating circumstances.
Okay, well, that's all I have to say. I
Okay.
guess. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And then we have Kay Holland. Are you still on it? You're good.
Okay.
Never mind. That's it.
No one else speaking on this one? Okay. You want to come up? Please state your name and single-member district or address.
Hi, my name is Alicia Lawn, and and I live in the area, so, and these are my neighbors and people that live around. We just, we didn't vote because we just wanted to know more about it, so.
Sure.
I don't know if we can still say if we're opposed or not opposed now that we've heard more about it. How do we?
I think you absolutely can say that you're opposed or in favor. Kim, or yeah, at the, right now, if you'd like to.
Well, we're still not 100%
In public or in
sure.
writing, or both.
So we have the number to the person that owns it. Is that on our?
It will be provided by the staff.
432. I
It should
mean,
have been on your notification letter.
Mhm.
If it's not, let me know and I can get that for you.
okay, maybe speaking with them and getting to know what their intention is.
Yes,
'Cause
ma'am.
We have a lot of transients. We have the alleyway that a lot of the transients come through that alley, and we just want to, yeah, make sure that, you know, our area is safe. A lot of elderly people live on that block, and.
Yes, ma'am.
so- Okay, well, cool. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I will make one comment, just, you know, because as Travis mentioned, short-term rentals are such a debate item every month that we're sitting up here making these decisions. You know, as, you know, for the public to understand on a short-term rental basis, typically if you have a long-term rental, an owner will, you know, procure a tenant and do their best to screen it. Unless that tenant is not paying, it's very hard to remove a tenant. You have to go through eviction court, and it costs money for the owner, et cetera. These short-term rentals, on average, the owner is, you know, paying potentially $7,000 or more to furnish the rental, to upkeep the lawn maintenance, to upkeep the exterior, because ideally, when they're showcasing their home on VRBO, Airbnb, any of those sites, they want their property to stand out compared to another property that a potential tenant may pick. So with that being said, we do, as you know, I'm speaking for everyone sitting up here, so hopefully that's okay. But we do feel that a lot of the owners that come in front of us for these STRs do have a lot vested, a lot of personal money attached to these properties, and plan on keeping the neighborhood clean and nice, so that way that they do have income coming in, so.
There have been very, very few, but we've had a couple of incidences where an operator hasn't maintained the property to an appropriate standard or remained in compliance with the city's requirements, and we've revoked a short-term rental license. So, I mean, again, we're trying to do what we can as a planning commission to put some regulation and control in so that if there are issues, we have some measure of trying to get them addressed, which is a lot more than we probably get otherwise. So, okay, so we've closed public comment. We're down to taking a motion on that property.
Make a motion to approve as presented by staff.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. CU 2429, 999 Knickerbocker, request for conditional use for retail use within the light manufacturing zoning district.
Good morning, Ray Lineberry, planner. So this one is a conditional use, but not a short-term rental. It is to allow retail sales and events, gathering place in a light manufacturing zoned area. It is District 5, Karen Hesse Smith in the ASU College Hills neighborhood. And it might look familiar, you guys approved a conditional use for this for retail sales a year ago. So we mailed out 6 notices, 0 in favor and 0 opposed were received. On the left is the zoning. It is light manufacturing, that area kind of is. And then the vision plan on the right shows it as commercial. And I included a picture zoomed out a little bit more so that way you can kind of see what's in the area. Granted, I didn't turn the overhead images on, but you can kind of see that it's near a lot of the ASU fields, and SAISD's building is right there. But all along Knickerbocker here, there's Cheddar's and Cork and Pig and a couple of hotels. So staff is recommending approval on the conditional use with 3 conditions. That they generally conform to a CG zoning district, which includes a 40% outdoor storage. And then all lighting, if they use it outside, can be fully shielded so it doesn't spill over into adjacent properties. And that they get a change of occupancy or any building permits that are required.
This is an existing building?
Correct. And
How has
you-
it operated in the past? As it light manufacturing or retail?
It has always been retail. It was a boat and then a pool. And then last year, you guys approved I believe it was golf carts? Golf cart sales, that they
remember
never
that.
ended up doing that. So it has always been commercial,
Okay, thank you.
or used as commercial.
All right. Any questions for the staff?
And nobody has signed up for public comment on this one?
Okay, so I'm going to open public comment. Anyone speaking on this case? I'm going to close public comment and take a motion.
Make a motion to approve as presented by staff.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 6-0. Sign variances. Planning Commission has final authority for approval of sign variances. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. SV 2402-2 North Cohenheim. A variance request to allow a second freestanding sign fronting Cohenheim and allow the sign at the property line in lieu of the required 5-foot setback located at 2 North Cohenheim.
There we go. Okay, Ray Lineberry, planner. So this is a request to have 2 variances on a sign to allow a second freestanding sign within 200 feet of another. And also, they're right at they would prefer it to be right at the property line because of the height of the sign. We require 1 foot setback from the property line for every foot over 20 feet, and it is 30 feet in height. So that would be 5 feet setback requirement. It is in CBD, District 3, Harry Thomas, the downtown neighborhood. We did mail out 15 notices. We received 0 in favor and 0 opposed. This is the sign that they would like, and you can tell right at the corner, they're going to put it right there. So currently, it is the old Jack's gas station, and Jack's plan had the prices on the canopy over the pumps. Chevron does not do that, so they are asking to put the sign with the prices there at the corner.
Ray, I'm sorry to interrupt. How
you're
tall
good.
is this sign?
I believe it is 30 feet.
In this picture, it doesn't look any taller than the traffic light, but I think that may be inaccurate.
Do I have another picture?
Can you go back?
So,
Go back a couple of slides. Right there.
right there.
I can't read.
It is 29.6 feet.
So it's 30 feet tall.
Yep.
How tall is a light pole? A signal? 20, 15?
I don't know.
Probably between 15 and 20 because fire height is 13 feet for fire engines and ladder trucks to go under.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's around the 15 to 20, but probably 17 to 20 maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. Go ahead.
So this is the before and after of what it would look like. And you notice this is the first sign that we are talking about. It is within 184 feet of it, and in the ordinance it says it cannot be within 200 feet or 199 feet of another freestanding sign. I was a passenger in a car. It didn't come out very well, but I was just trying to get the look as you're coming up to it. So with that, within 200 feet, it's facing the same way. So if they could put the sign there and face it towards Harris to where it would be facing that way, and they would not need a variance. But they are preferring to have it face Coningheim, and it's the same as the sign back here.
So that sign that you just circled
This one?
is the second large sign
Correct.
on the site,
Correct. It is within
where
184
the
feet
already
of this
existing
spot.
one.
And our guidelines are 200 feet.
Correct.
The information that's on the first sign, though, is not price? Is it
Correct.
just advertising that it's a gas station? Looks like
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
just words, so it would be a totally different sign.
Correct. Yes, it would.
Okay?
I listed out the items that could be considered as a hardship in the sign variance process. The size and shape or dimension of the structure, the location of the structure, the topography and physical conditions of the site, or other physical limitations. It is a very low flat, as you can see in this picture. There really isn't anything blocking anything, so staff does not feel that there really is a hardship to allow a second one within 200 feet. So we are recommending denial of the sign variance for both to allow a second within 200 feet and the required 5-foot. We would prefer the 5-foot be required.
Okay.
Not
Can you go
at the
back
property
to the diagram with the sign, both signs in it? Keep going back, right there. So there's a 5-foot setback that's listed in this case. What is the required setback for that sign?
They can be at the property line if they are at 20 feet, because they are, for every 2 feet over the 20 feet, you are required to put it, no, I said that wrong, 2 feet over?
So it's about the height of the sign. Since the sign is 30 feet tall, it must be 5 feet off of both property lines.
So if they made
They're
it
ask-
20 feet, other than the fact that there's a second sign, it would have been fine. Correct.
For the location,
okay.
then the question is, which way do they turn it? So do they have 2 sign faces facing one street frontage, or do they have 2 freestanding signs, one facing Harris being one street frontage, the other one is the taller sign that's at the back of the property facing Coingheim? And it's about this happens to be a corner lot and 2 street frontages. So each street frontage, you get 1 freestanding sign between 1 foot of linear distance and 199 foot of linear distance on the street frontage. They want to put 2 on Coingheim. If they'd put 1 on Harris, there is no variance request.
Did you ask the applicant if they would be mindful and consider taking down the second sign in lieu of this larger corner sign?
We did, and since that sign is within the standards for the zoning district, they did not want to take that down.
Okay.
Can you circle approximately where that new sign would be? It looks like there's a lot of foliage there, and so would it be just in that little corner there, with or without the variance? I'm trying to see where.
So
Where does it have to, does it violate the variance for setback today as it's proposed?
yes,
By how many feet?
5 feet.
By 5 feet.
So Ray,
Thank
is
you.
that heavy, dark red line, is that the sign?
Correct.
So you see that there, Trinidad? It's right on the front property line, but you see it's parallel to Harris. So it would need to be, the pole would need to be 5 feet back. And since the sign's taller than 9 feet, it could have that overhang because that's what signs are allowed to. But it's really, where's that pole? If you move that pole back, it's right in the middle, like you said, of all of the landscaping that's there. But it also probably gets very close to that canopy because you can see the dotted line is the canopy top. That black dotted or dashed line, I should say, is the canopy top. And so they didn't want it to blend and cover the Chevron name that's on the canopy. I know a lot of moving parts, but it's about how many can they have on the frontage of Cohenheim, and can they have it closer than the 5 feet setback for the height of the sign?
I'm having a real hard time looking at this diagram because it's not scaled properly. I mean, this is a 30-foot tall sign, not 20 or 15.
Correct.
Okay. All right. You've gone through the recommendations?
Yes.
Anyone else have questions for the staff? Okay, we're going to open it up for public comment.
And we do have the applicant representative here.
Okay, great. Good morning.
Morning. Kendall Robinson for Print Signs, the company that is doing the installation. I apologize for the scaling. I'll get with my design team about that. As you can see, the existing canopy has the price signs on the canopy itself. We will be modifying the canopy to look like a normal rectangular canopy instead of the cutouts that y'all see in those dotted lines. So if we were to install the new sign with the proper 5 foot by 5 foot setback, that puts the new sign almost touching the canopy. And just for safety reasons, we would rather have a little bit of a gap there. The canopy is currently sitting with a clearance of 18 feet. So the canopy itself, top of it would be at 22 feet. So the sign give you an idea of where the height would be. That way you can kind of visualize with the scaling. The existing sign that is on location is currently sitting at 40 feet tall. It does not have any kind of price sign on it. And that's why we're wanting to install the price sign for our customers to see. We know that we can rotate the sign to Harris, but the majority of the traffic's coming from Cohenham. That's what we're trying to target. With the height of the current sign, even though it's not the proper setback, it will be high enough that you won't have any kind of visibility triangle issues with anyone trying to make a right-hand turn out of there. It'll still be fully capable of seeing underneath the sign without any issues. And you have any questions on it?
You have questions for the applicant?
Whenever I'm still on that corner, by moving the setback, is it going to be closer to the pavement where that white truck is right now? Is that what we're pushing toward?
Yes, sir.
That white truck?
How can I change the picture on this? Which arrows?
Oh, sorry about that.
So with the setback, it will be right where that curve, that is very touchy. With a 5 foot by 5 foot setback, it will put the pole right on the curb itself where that curve makes. So we will have to cut out the curb and then re-pour a curb around the pole to prevent any kind of hitting, which another aspect of that is any kind of trucks with any kind of hangover have that potential of hitting that pole, which is another reason why I like to keep it inside the dirt as much as possible without destroying that current yucca tree.
That was my concern. I pull a lot of trailers, and having it that close to the unit when I turn, just depends on when we turn. Okay.
Absolutely, and this is a difficult lot for a trailer. Luckily, those pumps are at an angle, and there's some more pumps a little bit further down that would be better to go through with the trailer. But not even thinking about a trailer, a flatbed dually, or even like a larger, Isuzu truck that's almost a Class B truck but underrated. It's going to be a little bit more overhang over those curbs, and keeping it away from being right on that curb is going to help prevent that. I apologize, I'm losing my voice. So,
So what is the objection to removing the other sign that's set further back on the lot?
just, it's a pre-existing sign that's been there for well over 20 years. In the past, you can see, even just watching, if you look at Google Maps over the years, that sign used to be much closer to the 65 feet tall. They lowered it when it was still an Exxon and an old, different type of service station a long time ago. Just, it's a pre-existing sign, nice, solid structure that if it ever gets removed, it will not be able to go back in just with all the current ordinances, and ordinances won't get loosened up over the years.
Okay.
And all of this, I did have to go through the historical district and bring all of this to them as well. They approved it, which they had to approve it before I could get with y'all, so.
Okay.
So on that, the DHRC board approves the design and look, not the placement.
Okay.
And then I also wanted to mention, the applicant has gotten with me and asked about them putting the prices on that existing sign. However, I'm researching to see if makes it too big then, if the square footage is too much. But I have not gotten that answer yet.
I'm super familiar with this area, and I don't, personally, I don't understand the benefit of a 30-foot sign on the corner. The traffic is, it hits you in the face when you get to that Jack's. If it was lower to the ground, it would seem like it'd be a lot more visible if it's one-way traffic.
Under normal circumstances, I would.
It's northbound only.
I would propose a monument sign for the customer where it's
Yeah,
not on the ground.
that'd be
What
great.
worries me is, like we mentioned before, the trucks. If someone was to hit that pipe that has, 3/8 thickness, it's not gonna break. If someone was to hit those aluminum cabinets that are on just a small structure, it's gonna destroy them. So more, it's just getting the cabinets up and off the ground and away from anyone from potentially having an accident inside the parking lot itself, just because.
Okay.
Does your second sign have power, or would that all have to be power run to it in the event that we modified that?
If this was approved, I would need to have power ran to it, yes, sir.
The second one, okay.
Anyone else have questions for the applicant? Kendall, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your time. Anyone else speaking on this case, Ray? All right, I'm going to close public comment. I don't know why they need a 30-foot sign, and I don't know why they wouldn't be willing to take down the other sign to put this one up if this is what they want. So it's hard for me to support this.
And again, if they faced it the other way, it wouldn't even be an issue, correct? They
That's
can
right.
do it all day long, 30 foot, everything.
But it's,
They would have to do the 5-foot setback because of the 30 foot. But they gotta get 30 foot to get over the canopy. Otherwise, you're back down to a pedestal and like he was talking about, so, okay.
I understand the limitations of the site. I don't,
Okay, so even if it were a ground sign, you've got to think, there's plenty of gas stations that have ground signs. I know that particular location is a little tighter, but is there some sort of barricade that you could put on?
would a monument sign be allowed?
Probably have to go back before the historical people.
No, I'm speaking in terms of just the sign ordinance. I know there would be another,
I believe and Ray, you might correct me if I misstate this, this is Central Business District. So I believe in Central Business District, a monument sign is allowed.
okay?
The other option, and I'm not saying it's a great option, but is there a way to modify when they're doing the canopy? If this is going to be already over the canopy, is there a way to mount it to the canopy? Now, that probably has its own logistical problems that I'm not thinking of, but that would get the setback, but then you still have the distance, maybe variance to deal with. I do know, since I work downtown, go and visit that site often. It is very tight there on the corner, just
Yeah.
driving a regular size pickup, getting fuel there. most of the time I choose the ones towards the other end. So I understand his concerns about having space, so I fully understand that. We're just presenting, this is what's in our ordinance, this is in our downtown design district, which the look was approved, but our sign ordinance says this isn't allowed. If you look at the other businesses between Cohenheim and Abe, the only one that has 2 freestanding signs is Popeyes, and that's because they have one on Cohenheim and one on Abe. And that's because they're double frontage, and they're just looking at that. Everybody else has one freestanding sign. And right across the road, as our legal counsel, Brandon mentioned that Schlotzsky's actually does have a monument sign across the street.
And a freestanding sign.
I believe they do have a freestanding sign somewhere. It's been a while since I've looked on that side.
Yeah.
I know they have wall signs for sure, but
So if they had a monument sign and kept the other existing sign, we're still in violation because of the 200 feet, correct? No?
I don't think so. Freestanding signs are, basically pole signs are a different category than monument signs, I believe. I'm trying to see if Ray's shaking her head yes. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion on this one?
I'd move to deny in support of the staff's recommendation.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second to deny. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed to the denial? Anyone? So 6-0 to deny. All right, non-conforming use extensions. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval of non-conforming use extensions. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. NCU 2401, 1529 West Avenue N, a request for an expansion of a non-conforming structure under Section 602B, located at 1529 West Avenue N, to add cover structure to their rooftop seating area.
Thank you, Chairman. Aaron Vanoy, Director of Planning Development Services. This is a expansion of the non-conforming structure. You can see here we have the Calvary Cemetery right there. Fairmont is just to the east of that. This structure has been there for many, many years, sat vacant for quite a few years, and now has become occupied in the last, I think, year and a half, maybe 2 years. A small restaurant has moved in and occupied it. As many of y'all have seen in the past, there's kind of a staircase, and I've got some other close-up images that show that they do have a rooftop seating area. This is a very small building. What our zoning ordinance says is based on the zoning districts, you have to have a minimum separation. Well, that's very difficult to do that here. This is in SMD number 5, Karen Hesse Smith, and it's in the ASU College Hills neighborhood. So here you can see the zoning. Here on the left is what we call the vision plan, the neighborhood area. And so you have neighborhood center for small businesses just like this. And then you have campus institutional there with the cemetery. On the right side, you can see that the actual zoning for the cemetery is RS1. And then you have neighborhood center there for this, or general commercial, general commercial for the 1529 Avenue N property. So the zoning ordinance says between commercial and residential, you must have a 10-foot separation, no structures or anything like that. Here's the actual couple of site pictures. You can see there towards the back of the property, or the back of the structure, I should say, is where their rooftop seating area is. As you can also see that most of that area to the side of it is paved area. There is no area to add any kind of trees or any vegetation for shade. This is open to primarily really the east, south, and west sunshine in West Texas. And this being a small business that has a small interior seating, they need as much seating as they can get. And so it does make a lot of sense to continue the use to allow this structure to go up. It's not going to encroach more to the side. It's just simply going to allow the structure to go up. We did send out notices. We sent out 12. We did not get any in support or opposition. Our rationale, again, here, we're talking about the 10-foot separation. The current structure is legal non-conforming. To get it to the height that they need, this just requires Planning Commission to make the decision. We believe this is the minimal action that's needed to move this project forward so that they can continue with their building permits. And we also think it is a good small business in this ASU corridor along Avenue N to continue. So with that, staff's recommendation is approval of the expansion of the non-conforming structure. The only condition is for them to obtain their building permits and inspections. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have questions for the staff? Thank you, Aaron. I'm going to open it up for public comment.
The applicant, Stephen Gossett.
All right.
How are y'all today?
Good morning.
Good morning. Stephen Gossett, owner of Angelo Ale House. Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I'm just here to ask for approval for, it's a freestanding lean-to over the rooftop seating area. We have about a 3 to 4 foot gap between our east property line and the cemetery, which obviously is not the 10 foot. So we're just asking for approval to be able to set up a few steel beam structures to support that rooftop.
Okay.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephen. Anyone else speaking on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0, approve. Discussions, section of Knickerbocker rezoning.
Thank you, Chairman. As y'all saw earlier with the conditional use, which was for this property right up here in the corner, this area is largely light manufacturing. What city staff has recognized over time is that all of these properties really from here at Jackson, along the railroad to Knickerbocker to here, none of those are light manufacturing, but many of them are zoned light manufacturing. As you can even see, there's really not any vacancy except for one space right there that may be being limited because it says it's light manufacturing, because that's not a very large site for manufacturing. It was probably zoned in 2000, when they came in, they said, hey, the railroad's there, this might turn light manufacturing someday. With the proximity to ASU, SAISD, their athletic complex, and the continual trend of retail and activities along Knickerbocker, we don't see that happening. So here you can see there's somebody that came in and got the Starbucks, probably when they did the chicken store. Is that the right name, the chicken store? Is it Chickenbacher? Is that? I'm not sure if that's the right name of that. That's the unofficial name. They did get it rezoned to CG. What city staff is asking is for maybe some direction from this board. If this board would be interested in hearing a city staff initiated to rezone this area to CG, not to the east or the south of the railroad, but between Knickerbocker and the railroad, as all of those uses currently, you see this is all apartments through here and here. That is Cork and Pig, that is Cheddar's, this is a hotel, this is Starbucks, and then one of these, and I don't remember exactly which one, this may be Mr. Allison's real estate, and then there's a med spa, maybe one of these, and then the conditional use that we did today to become a retail sales. So we're just really asking, is this something that we can dedicate some city staff time to do some research, contact those property owners, let them know what our intents are, and see if they're favorable for us moving forward? Probably would not come back to you guys until maybe February, but to rezone this area, the vision plan is commercial, so just rezoning to general commercial would be appropriate. If we think there's a site or two that needs to be maybe heavy commercial, we might consider that as well. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
This area to me is restaurant and retail all the way. It's been developed like that. It's going to remain like that probably in my lifetime. I think the greater concern is a vacant tract that has non-compatible zoning with what's been built around there. I don't think that this is a good area for light manufacturing. I also think that if you were to look at the highest and best use of these tracts, commercial and retail is likely the highest and best use, which means that the value is appropriate for retail use and zoning. Light manufacturing would typically have lower density and lower land prices, and this is just not. Knickerbocker's become a major thoroughfare for our community. Sherwood Way, Knickerbocker, and Bryant. So I think rezoning this makes a lot of sense.
Definitely. Now, what about where Austin Street comes in? Because you've got United Rentals there, and then down further is ASCO.
I wouldn't touch that.
Correct. We would
Okay.
not go above the
Above
Knickerbocker
there. Okay.
right there.
South side of Knickerbocker.
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct. That's what we would evaluate. If those properties came in and requested something, we might consider that. I think heavy commercial makes more sense for them than light manufacturing, but right now they're functioning fine, and we just know that we've come through with a few conditional uses through there. We know the uses are not light manufacturing, and the trend is not in the light manufacturing area in that part of town.
Okay. No, I think it's great.
All right. Well, city staff will dedicate some time to that and work forward and work with property owners. We will be working with property owners and talking with them about what impacts, implications mean, so that we can come forward with a recommendation in a few months to Planning Commission.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks,
The other
guys.
item on the discussion is the sign ordinance amendments.
Correct. Many of y'all may know that we had kind of a moratorium on a couple of sections of the sign ordinance, basically off-site versus on-site signage. There was a court with the Supreme Court of State of Texas that was talking about you could or could not advertise off-site and on-site at the same time. Basically, it has come down and said, no, that's okay. You can regulate that if you choose to. Well, we've kind of put a hold on that, but we need to bring that forward to you guys and to City Council to make sure that we are looking at any kind of minimal changes. We're not wanting to open up the sign ordinance. That's kind of a Pandora's box, but we do know we need to make some changes because we are not enforcing that now. If we were to revert back to what's on the books today, we would go back to enforcing on-site versus off-site. What we've seen in those 4 years that it's not necessarily an issue. The issue is a definition of what is a billboard. We don't have a local definition of a billboard, and that's what we need to establish in our sign ordinance. So my goal is to go in front of City Council in December at both meetings and request that the ordinance be postponed for 6 months. That gives us time. We already have an ordinance written, but it needs to be reviewed by possibly a small committee of the Planning Commission as well as stakeholders that are out there in our community to look at, does this make sense for our community? Our goals in that ordinance that has been revamped is billboard definitions and locations. Where can they be in our community? How do we deal with banners? Because we see a lot more banners going up in our community, and if they're not, in my opinion, not dealt with quickly, as far as a banner should be there a certain period of time, they become unsightly. and that can be challenging, as well as temporary signs. And temporary signs run the full gamut of, think about Double Dave's bus, to something that's on the back of a trailer, to something like that. I mean, there's a whole gamut of things. But at least just give some parameters of, all right, what do they mean, where can they be, and how long can they stay there? And that's kind of our goal. So I wanted to give you all an update on that. I'm happy to answer any questions, but you will more than likely see some more of this coming up first part of the year.
Okay.
I do believe the sign ordinance will take a joint meeting because it is tied to zoning, not just in the sign ordinance itself. And so since it's tied to zoning, and if we are changing something there, that probably takes a joint meeting with Planning Commission and City Council. And so we're anticipating March or April. We know March can be a tricky time based on spring break, and so it might be the first part of April, but we need to start looking at calendars and discussing that now along with our city council to make sure we can all get together and address some items that we need to address.
It's good with me.
Any other questions?
All right. Planning Director's report. We're going to stay with you, Aaron.
Yes, thank you. So you did mention a great conversation with the short-term rental today. Thank you, Chairman Stribling, for helping explain to some of our citizens kind of what that means. As we did the short-term rental ordinance, there was discussion with our city council about a software program. Its name is called Granicus, or that's the company that sells it. We are in the implementation phase of that software. Ray Lineberry has been very critical in helping us get that move forward. She's pushed really hard on making sure that we're going to have this software for our community. We feel like sometime in February or March that's going to be pushed out to our community. It will host a 24-hour hotline that's actually answered by a person. So if you're a citizen that has an issue with a short-term rental, you can call in and say, I have an issue with property ABC, and that's recorded. Those folks will actually have also the local operator's contact information to contact that local operator and said, hey, you've had a complaint, there's these issues that are happening. And so they would be able to potentially address that. If it's something that needs to be addressed through the police department, they will be trained on when does that need to escalate to a police department, or if it's called into 911 or things like that. It will also give tracking for our hot taxes and making sure that applicants have a way online to pay their hot taxes. They don't have to necessarily come down and do a physical thing at the city hall, although they could, but they would have that ability. So we're very excited about that. It's also going to help us clean up our list and find out who's really in violation and who's not. They also do kind of a sweep of websites that are out there that are advertising. They give us those lists. We work with our staff member internally that would go by and check on those and say, hey, you've been flagged because it looks like you're advertising as a short-term rental. Please come and explain to us what's going on, and we start potentially an enforcement or a compliance process there. So we're very excited that this is coming for our community. It's going to help us become more efficient, and I think it also gives more protections to our neighbors that are concerned about these properties, and hopefully everybody gets on the same playing field and realize that there are benefits to short-term rentals, but they also have to act responsibly for our community to work.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I know
I think
it's
it's
a lot of
wonderful you've
work.
got software rolling out to help. It's a big job otherwise.
The other update I have, I was at a conference in Pittsburgh earlier this fall, was able to meet with the Airbnb representative and talk to them about what would it take for Airbnb and like companies to start securing our local hot tax, not just the state hot tax. And it essentially comes down to writing an ordinance in the local ordinances that says they must remit local hot taxes. And so I'm going to be working with our finance department because we really think this really goes into the hot tax ordinance, not in the zoning ordinance, but work with them of writing something very simple, using some kind of simple language that would require those companies collect the hot tax when people register for a local short-term rental. It's very simple. They do it at the front end of the process. The public really doesn't see it. The operator really doesn't see it because it's collected at the front and it comes in, and we think that's going to be much more successful in collecting our hot taxes and making this process a lot more streamlined. And so we're going to be working on that as well this spring to bring that forward.
I think that's a wonderful idea. That's
You
going
guys
to be
are
a
killing it.
big
Good
help.
job.
Another update I have is on December the 2nd, we are going to be in front of City Council seeking a letter of support for a grant to the resilient communities for our comprehensive plan update. We are going to be asking the City Council to support that grant. The Resilient Communities Grant is through the State of Texas Land Office. Could give us up to $300,000 for us to look at our comprehensive plan. As we know, there are parts of our comprehensive plan, just like we talked about this morning, that someone just kind of painted a paintbrush over and said, all right, these 200 feet are going to be commercial, not necessarily thinking about what's there today and what that's going to turn into. We know that we're probably going to ask for additional funding, which would probably come out of the general fund or how City Council looks at that. But the real goal is, how do we get to our zoning ordinance? Our current zoning ordinance predates our comprehensive plan today, and we've got to address our zoning ordinance within the next 5 years to continue to be pro-housing, to be pro-development, to be pro-business, so that we can continue to help folks get what they want and need in our community. As I think one of the ladies talked about, what about the neighborhood? And I think we've gone to where we've been very corridor focused. This roadway is a major roadway, so we think commercial's there. Well, what about the neighborhood? We need to be a little more neighborhood focused at times. How are we protecting our neighborhoods? Because San Angelo is a neighborhood community. And we have learned in the last 6 months to a year that the more residential rooftops you have, the more commercial that comes in and the more industrial that comes in. It's not necessarily the other way first. So we've got to bring the citizens here that want to come and live and work and play in San Angelo because of our quality of life things that we have. So we're working on that. Last thing is in the spring sometime I'm working on an infill report. If y'all recall, there was a funding opportunity through Neighborhood Services that was for infill for residential. It's been 5 years since that program's going on. It's time to evaluate if it's been working and successful, but I think that also ties into what we want to look at for zoning is our residential requirements, are they still working? Just like when we worked with this developer today to say, all right, we need to make sure that we're having something flexible that can move with the market. Does our ordinance do that? And so sometime this spring, we'll also be talking about infill, how those dollars have been spent, and what can we do potentially in the next 6 to 12 months to modify our zoning ordinance to help continue with housing in different areas. With that, I think that's enough.
That's a lot, and you've touched on some really big items, Aaron. The updating the comprehensive plan, I think, is a critical item, and having grant money available to help offset some of that cost is nice.
Yeah.
But we got to do it. It's been over 20 years, and there's a lot of change coming to our community.
There is.
We have 2 interstate highways coming through. That alone is significant.
And I'm very, very happy for the 2 designation of interstates. I also have that little kernel of concern back there of we don't want to displace what we have here and decide to move it over to the interstate.
Right.
We want to maybe grow over there, but let's not displace something that's working here and make some neighborhoods or areas suffer because we just did displacement. So we need to plan ahead.
We do. And then infill, I mean,
Yeah.
we got to have infill. Infill means that we're probably in the neighborhood of where existing utilities are. And that seems to be one of the biggest hurdles for development within our community is that cost.
Yes, cost of infrastructure is very high on any lot, and that is challenging. And I think that's where we have to make decisions in the future that make a lot of sense. While I love wide roads too, can we afford those roads in 25 years to maintain them and fix them? Does
Yeah.
something different make more sense? Are we being fiscal stewards of dollars today and in the future when we make those decisions? And so looking at those areas around town that make sense for infill development and supporting it in some way, how do we do that?
Yep. It's all great. Thank you, Aaron.
All right, thank you.
Follow-up and administrative issues. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is scheduled for Monday, December 16th at 9 a.m. at the McNeese Convention Center, right where we are. I guess until further notice. I think that's all we've got. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? There's no opposition. It's 10:53 a.m.